Do you ever ponder as to where all the water goes after you have flushed the toilet? Well, to be honest, me too. But if you are from Chicago, you don't need to think about it anymore because your water is on its way to one of the biggest and most technologically advanced wastewater treatment plants in the world, the Stickney Water Reclamation Plant. This engineering marvel handles up to 1.4 billion gallons of wastewater daily and converts it into something far more useful than it was initially, or rather, far from being as gross. Thus, as soon as your wastewater has bid farewell to your house, it is already headed straight for some kind of a tough journey. Well, it stinks, we know, because this water is filled with all sorts of waste products, including food leftovers, chemicals, and some things that are better not to mention. The first stop in this journey is the place where all the large, nasty things that you do not want in your life are removed. And when I say big, I'm talking about everything from candy wrappers to those notorious flushable wipes. Well, spoiler alert, they aren't. It seems that these wipes are the nemesis of the plant, clogging everything like a wad of chewed gum on the sole of your shoe. To handle this mess, the plant employs the use of coarse screens. Consider them as large cheese slicers for your wastewater. And when the wipes inevitably stick to one another, special rakes pull them apart and ship them off to a dump. Not the glamorous afterlife they imagined, but hey, they had it coming. If the big stuff has been dealt with, there is still much work to be done as the water is still not clean. Well, now it is back to some separation anxiety. These go into the aerated grit tanks where the lightweights, like fats and oils, are skimmed off the top, while the big guns, like the sludge, sink to the bottom. Picture this. The sludge is that one friend who never rises to the top of the waters, and the scum is that one friend who just floats on the surface. It has to cope with both, but sludge is the one that goes places here. It's headed for a makeover in the digesters. More on that in a bit. This is where it gets interesting. Having disposed of most of the wastewater, it is now time to give some makeover to the sludge that has been separated from the rest of the wastewater. But not just any makeover, this is a complete transformation of what can be thought of as disgusting into something that has utility. This is the world of anaerobic digestion, or how the Stickney plant turns sludge into energy so valuable it lights up the town. Anaerobic digestion is a process that replicates what happens in an individual's stomach when taking food, only that it is bigger. The sludge is then transferred to large, closed vessels known as digesters, which are mixed with certain bacteria. These microorganisms adore materials derived from organic production, and when they're in an anaerobic atmosphere, they decompose the organic matter and expel biogas. Biogas is made up of methane and carbon dioxide, and it is the methane that the Stickney plant requires. Methane is a very effective greenhouse gas, but it is an effective fuel as well. It seizes this methane and uses it in its operations to generate energy. Actually, a large part of the electricity requirement for the plant is fulfilled by the biogas produced here, thus minimizing the dependence on external energy and emissions of greenhouse gases. But there's more. After the microorganisms have finished the job, there is only a stiff residue left, which is termed as biosolids cake. This might not sound like something worth craving, but it contains nutrients that can be used in ways that are not quite so pleasant. Rather than let this go as a biosolids cake, it is further processed and converted into a fertilizer. As we have digested the sludge, it is now important to drain all the remaining water from it. The plant is filled with centrifuge machines so fast that your head might spin trying to keep up with one. It also separates the remaining water from the biosolids cake. Think of a washing machine set on the turbo, one that hurls the water right out of the clothes. The centrifuges do the same thing to the sludge, which is put back into a thick, dry material that can go on the road. Every day, the plant produces more than 1,000 wet tons of biosolids cake transported to the treatment lagoons. But this cake is not for eating. It's on its way to becoming fertilizer. Some of you might not believe that waste is beneficial to the growth of plants, but this is exactly the job of biosolids. The nutrient-rich solids, after being prepared in the lagoons, are then converted into a fertilizer that can be used in farms, parks, and gardens, among others. No more expensive chemical fertilizers because biosolids are full of nitrogen and phosphorus, the elements that plants love. In other words, it is as if you could feed your own garden with gourmet food. Fortunately, Stickney Plant has a research department and they have managed to get the best formula for it that is safe for use. So, the next time you're admiring a lush green park, just remember, you might even have Stickney Plant to thank for it. But let me tell you, the sludge is not the only one having a party. The liquid discharge is still up to something. The next stop, secondary treatment, which involves a lot of small characters coming on the scene, the microorganisms. These little guys have one job, absorbing all the organic pollutants in the water. So, it is with the wastewater bugs, as I have come to refer to them, gobbling up the bad stuff and converting it into something not as nasty. They are particularly effective for the conversion of ammonia, which is quite toxic to nitrate and nitrite, which are considerably less dangerous to the environment. It's a delicate process, but the plant has got it down to a science. Once the water has gone through the microorganisms, it is almost fit to be discharged back into the environment, but to get there, it requires one more refinement. The water enters large, round sedimentation tanks in which any of the last of the solids have an opportunity to sink. In these tanks, the water moves even slower and the gravity takes effect and performs its function. The last of the solids settle at the bottom and are pumped out. However, they undergo further processing. At the same time, the clarified water floats to the top for the last round of purification. As you can imagine, this is like the rinse in the car wash process, where the water is almost completely free of particles. But before the water is released, it must go through quality tests that are in line with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA. The Stickney Plant's on-site laboratory conducts tests daily to determine whether any contaminants are still present and whether the water being treated complies with all the legal requirements. But what is the outcome of all this effort? First of all, it protects the water in Chicago and its rivers from their tributaries from contamination with toxic substances. But the effect is not limited to this. Through recycling waste and producing energy and fertilizer, Stickney Plant is also helping the city of Chicago to decrease the overall emissions of carbon and the usage of non-renewable resources. That's a bonus. Cleaner water, greener parks, and a more sustainable city for everyone. The plant's research capability enables them to be constantly on the lookout for better ways to do things, and this keeps Chicago's wastewater treatment plant among the best. Therefore, next time you're about to flush, remember the long journey that water is about to experience. From coarse screens to anaerobic digesters, from centrifuges to settling tanks, every step is a well-coordinated process to safeguard our environment and our well-being.